Welcome again to Reviews from Purgatory, and this time around I am reviewing Cthulhu. Have to practice to say that name right, Cthulhu. This movie is supposedly based off of the Cthulhu mythos that exists in the works of H.P. Lovecraft, but as always, the adaptation fails. However, I kind of think it fails in an amusing way. More on that in a little while, but first, the story. So, Russ Marsh is a gay professor who is estranged from his family. But, when his mother dies, he goes back to his hometown. The two teenagers he just saw on his way into town tell him, "We knew you'd be back," and then they crash their car and both die. He goes straight to the wake from there and learns he is being forced by his mother's will to supervise the auction of his grandmother's house. I guess his mother owned it. Anyway. So that forces him to stay in town, and weird stuff starts to happen. Like, he has a dream about the kid dying in the car and the kid handing him some weird piece of stone. When he wakes up, he has the stone. A stone with weird writing on it that is in no known language. You have to conclude from the title of the movie that this stone will be used to summon Cthulhu from the depths of the sea, and that its minions will wreak havoc in the city and across the world. And you would be completely wrong, because Cthulhu does not appear in this movie, and all of its minions have about 30 seconds screen time. I need to step aside a minute and explain what the hell Cthulhu is to people who've never heard of it before. H.P. Lovecraft was a really inventive horror writer, and he came up with this pantheon of evil deities that were now gone. They slumber in the earth or the oceans or are out in space. And the idea in his stories is that they are unearthed by humans and are beings far beyond humanity who could easily destroy them. It's hard to explain why Lovecraft's stories became so popular, but maybe it's because the beings he's describing are so far beyond humans that it would be impossible to really fight them, which adds to the terror. It also might boil down to the forms these old gods and their minions took. They were monstrosities, things out of your worst nightmares. They don't really have natural elements to them. These aren't like werewolves or vampires where there's some humanoid elements to them. In any case, the most popular of them was Cthulhu. This depiction here is done by Borja Pindado, and it is the best I've ever seen. Check out their DeviantArt page, listed in the details, along with the pages of other people whose art appeared here. Of course, it's bizarre that I'm talking about Cthulhu at all, though, because, you see, this story is based off of The Shadow over Innsmouth by H.P. Lovecraft, which is actually about a different of the deities in his dark pantheon, Dagon. So why change the entity in the movie? Well, probably a ploy to get more people to see it, since Cthulhu is better known. Thankfully, this ploy didn't work. Alright, so I kind of went off on a rant there about Cthulhu and its minions not being in this movie, and then I had to explain what the hell Cthulhu was, and who H.P. Lovecraft was, and what his fictional works were about. So why did I do that? Well, because if you're going to make a work based off of H.P. Lovecraft, you have to have, like, the horrible monsters and a real impending sense of doom and all that. And you really don't get that so much from this film. I mean, you can feel that they were trying to do that, but they don't pull it off well enough. Earlier I said he found that stone right after a dream, a nightmare. That was a good part there. And a lot of stuff with the stone right after that worked well too. He was talking to the old man who was talking about horrible monsters attacking people. He talked to the girl from the liquor store and she explained that her brother had gone missing. There was clearly a moment where something was watching them in the woods. He realizes there's all these missing people. That part had some intensity, and then it pisses it away somehow. Think why it pisses it all away. Why this doesn't really work as a horror movie, or as any other kind of movies, that there are three factors at play. Now, the first off is just it's a bad script. And apparently it was even worse when it was released in theaters. They took off 20 minutes and tried to fix it up so that it made more sense. And it's still really bad. The second problem is really weird to talk about. It's like this film is two films merged together. And they don't fit together well. It's really a story more about a gay professor going back to the hometown that ostracized him and the family that he's estranged with for the same reason, his sexual orientation. And you go, did you really even need Cthulhu stuff in this movie at all? Because it feels like that's what the story's really about, and you just kind of tacked in horror elements to hook people in. Really, you got all these scenes where the main character, Russ, is talking with his childhood friend Mike, and eventually they have a romance. And then you have all these scenes where he feels ostracized, doesn't belong there, so maybe he's wandering off all alone because he doesn't feel like he has any friends there in the town where they all treated him like crap, where they called him a freak, and he tries to reconnoiter with his family, and you got all these elements, and then you have some horror elements tossed in, and you're like, you're not making a good horror story here at all. You could have made a story about a gay guy going back to the hometown that treated him badly, and that would have been a story. Or you could have made a story about the Cthulhu mythos, and that would have been a story. Instead, you tried to merge them together, and it turned into this awkward thing. It doesn't work at all. This scene illustrates the problem perfectly. The main character is on his way to an auction, his reason for staying in town, and he is stopped by a parade. And there's some obvious political subtext here, but what matters is that they're staring at him as the freak, the ostracized gay guy. And then, oh, wait a minute, that was the old man who warned him about the cult and the monsters in the sea and so on. And he's running for his life. Surely the main character will run after him. No? Just gonna get out of your car for a minute, look around a little bit, and then go back in your car? Maybe you're gonna drive after him? Look around the city like crazy trying to find him? No, not gonna do that either. Because the auction is what mattered. Right, okay. So he's yelling at the people like, oh, you ignorant rednecks, ostracizing me for my sexual orientation. And then you go, dude, you just found a dead kid in the scene before this, and you just saw a guy running for his life. I think maybe, just maybe, there are bigger issues at hand. Maybe he should think of the townspeople not as ignorant rednecks, but as members of the evil cult. It's just a matter of that darn main plot, rearing its head from time to time and getting in the way of that side plot about a gay guy returning to the hometown that mistreated him and carrying on a romance with his childhood friend. And that's what this story's about. The title does not suggest otherwise. They made it so that the side plot, the whole gay guy returning to the hometown that mistreated him and having a romance with his childhood buddy Mike, made it overshadow the main plot. I do like how I keep summarizing the whole side plot in one breath. A gay man returns to the hometown where he's treated like a freak and carries on a romance with his childhood friend Mike. The third problem this movie has is that it's amateurish. It looks like it was a college film made by a couple film school students. A lot of this amateurishness must stem from the limited budget they had. I mean, after all, they only had $750,000, but then again, I mean, Halloween was made on $325,000. So you can do a lot with a little if you do it right. One of the most trivial things, of course, would be the terrible wig the main character wears for the first part of the film. You just keep thinking, oh, that is a wig. You just constantly keep thinking that. Obviously, that's a silly thing to talk about, but, you know, I brought it up because in case any of you people ever see this movie, it'll be ruined for you. You'll be watching it at the beginning like, oh, it's a wig. That's a wig. That's all you'll be able to think about. You won't be able to think about anything else. And I'm happy that I've done that to you. But there are more important things to freak out about with this movie. And that would be like the overuse of filters. When it's the past or a present interior, they use these golden filters that are really bad. It's so overdone, you actually notice it. I mean, I'm not the kind of person who notices filters usually, but it's so overdone here, even I notice it. And it's nothing compared to the blue. The blue. When it's an exterior shot and it's the present, there's usually a blue filter, and it is so freaking blue you wouldn't even believe it. It's like they're about to introduce the new concept of fade to blue. The acting is extremely awkward. Most of the dialogue is really slow and dull, and it's delivered really emotionlessly most of the time. And when it isn't, it's over the top. I should also point out that the third act of the story is really disjointed and weak. The whole thing falls apart, and you're like, eh? They were trying so hard to be avant-garde and brilliant, but they failed at that. But you know what? It's still kind of an enjoyable watch. That's ultimately the point I want to get to, because it took itself so serious that it made unintentionally hilarious scenes. Like this scene here, where the main character picks up a cat. It's just a cat that happens to be there.
Mr. Barnes is unreachable. This is Lauren Passerine. Lauren Passerine.
Why did he just pick up a cat?
Executor of the estate.
We're not supposed to talk during the movie. But why did he just pick up a cat?
They say an auctioneer cried.
Maybe it's his cat. He doesn't own a cat. Maybe it was to avoid shaking hands with that woman.
Shall we go inside?
He sure is rubbing his chin against it a lot. Yeah. Wait, he still has the cat in the next scene. Well, I don't know, maybe it wasn't about the woman shaking her hand. Maybe it's the director's cat, and it really wanted a cameo? Maybe I noticed weird little things in this movie and started talking to myself because I was either so bored with so much of the movie that I needed to find something more interesting, or it just is really unintentionally hilarious, something like Plan 9 from outer space. So I present to you 2 unintentionally hilarious scenes from Cthulhu.
Who are you?
Relax.
Just take it easy. Take it easy. Give me the rock. Give me the rock. Fine. Come on. You want to know what this is? You want some answers? I'll give you answers. Fine. Get over to the liquor store and get me a bottle and a 6-pack. Okay. Meet me at the dock.
I don't know what part of that's funnier, the sudden demand for booze or the main character going along with it, just like that. Maybe the funniest thing about it is that the girl at the liquor store immediately knows who the booze is for. What, are there a bunch of informants who charge alcohol for the information they give out? Well, if you'd asked for wine coolers, that would be the teenagers by the high school. And a bottle of Kahlua, that's the crazy old cat lady. But you asked for a 6-pack and a bottle. That's the old man by the pier. This scene is after a mildly unsettling moment in the sewers.
I need some jelly. Do you have any jelly?
Russ, you've been up for like
Do you have any fucking jelly?
Been up
Do you
for
have any
2
jelly? It's a
days.
very simple question. Do
Why
you have
don't
any
you
jelly?
just relax and stay here for a little bit and get some rest?
You're a very bad host, man.
The man really likes his PB&J. So, the scales. Well, the blood scale, there's a blip here or there. I mean, bodies turn up. Fear scale, well, it had some moments early on, but then it lost that. It completely gets sidetracked with the side plot, among other things. As a movie in general, it's terrible. The scenes I showed you that were unintentionally funny, those are the best parts. You really would suffer through the rest of it. I wouldn't even get it for Mystery Science Theater 3000 sort of mocking of the movie as you watch it. Just skip it entirely. Until next time, this has been J. Matt Wygand with Reviews from Purgatory.
Been up
Do you
for
have any
2
jelly? It's a
days.
very simple question. Do
Why
you have
don't
any
you
jelly?
just relax and stay here for a little bit and get some rest?
You're a very bad host, man.